I had initially planned for today to be my final free agency grades video for the Bulls because today really would have been the day that most of the roster would have been starting to become finalized. But then, of course, we received the Woj bomb that the NBA is opening up an investigation against the Chicago Bulls and their sign and trade deal with the Pelicans on landing Lonzo Ball into possible tampering violations, which is just absolutely absurd to me that the league decides to single out the Bulls when literally every NBA team tampers, and the notion of beginning free agency at a set time doesn't mean anything when we know the players all talk beforehand. But I made a video on that topic yesterday, so I won't belabor the point here. You can check it out. If you missed it, I'll leave it linked on the end screen of this one. But not only that, we still, nearly 1 week after free agency began, have no idea where Lauri Markkanen is going and whether a sign and trade is still even possible for him. So my assumption that by Sunday that we would be in a good place to actually understand what our team is going to be looking like and having it a good time to actually grade some of these free agency moves. I'll actually have to hold off on that until this whole investigation blows over. So because of that, what I wanted to discuss in today's video is the Bulls acquisition of DeMar DeRozan, as I've been hearing a lot of mixed feelings from Bulls fans about this signing. So let's get into it. So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I do want to be clear that at least on the surface, it seems like the majority of Bulls fans are happy with this signing, including myself. And I'll get into the reasons why I am a bit apprehensive about it. But I think for the most part, Bulls fans and me were happy with this pickup because it's actually a big name, an actual star level player with talent. And it actually means the Bulls are relevant and are going to be fun to watch again. At least that's what we hope will be the case anyway. So despite the price tag being a bit high, also the fact that we had to trade a decent amount for him, sure, maybe a bit unsettling, but for the most part, the Bulls needed to do this to show that they mean business in looking to win now and being aggressive to get there. Now, the reason this video idea even came about was because I saw this best and worst free agency deals list come out from Kevin Pelton of ESPN, which I don't know why I take a lot of stock into some of these analysts and what they say on ESPN, because some clearly have no idea what they're talking about. But be that as it may, it got me thinking, is this actually a bad deal? Which, for the record, even I'm trying to look at this from a non-Bulls unbiased fan perspective. I don't know how you can consider this to be the worst deal in free agency when you had the Phoenix Suns offer Chris Paul at age 36 a 4-year, $120 million contract. Dude is going to be 40 by the time that contract expires. It's almost like the Suns forgot it's incredibly hard for guards to maintain their level of play beyond the age of 36, but hey, somehow DeMar DeRozan's deal was worse than that. But anyway, after I saw this, I started researching what other non-Bulls fans were saying, and I came across a lot of the same sentiment, that this wasn't a good signing for the Bulls and that it was a big-time overpay. So as unbiased and objective as possible as I can be, which we all know is hard to do when you're a die-hard Bulls fan, but looking at it from that lens, was this a bad contract? So first and foremost, let's talk about the actual contract value itself. Now, of course, this still hasn't been inked on paper, and who knows, maybe the league will throw out on another whim, will decide to investigate this deal and just ignore all the other shady deals like the Lakers have been doing for years. But based on what was announced to be agreed upon was a 3-year, $85 million year, which is fully guaranteed for DeMar DeRozan. No player or team options or partial guarantees of any kind on the final year of his deal. So that translates to about $28.3 million a year, which is a lot of money. I mean, that's star level money, and he'll be making more than anyone else on the Bulls in this upcoming season, and by a long shot really, with Vucevic making $24 million next season as their second highest paid player. Now, if you look at DeRozan's numbers, particularly the season he had last year, which was actually a really great year, an underrated year for him. I mean, prior to last season, people were always talking about DeRozan. Now, he doesn't fit in today's NBA with spacing and outside shooting, and he's never really been a good three-point shooter and more of a mid-range player and slasher to the hoop, but he really altered his game, becoming a much more versatile player, playing multiple positions all the way from 1 to 4. He elevated his passing and playmaking ability, finishing the season with a career high in assists, averaging nearly 7 assists per game. He was more efficient on offense, shooting near 50% from the field, but also turning the ball over less. So he finished the season averaging 21.6 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, and 6.9 assists. Yes, obviously his scoring wasn't what it used to be when he was with the Raptors, Raptors, but the guy is still a great scorer and will give you 20 plus on most nights. You put that alongside Lavine and Vucevic, who can also put up 20 plus on any given night, and pair those three with a playmaking point guard in Lonzo Ball, that's a solid lineup. Yes, I am slightly concerned about the fit with Lavine because they are both ball dominant players who like to score a lot, and they're also not the best defenders. But if there is one thing we know about Lavine, is that he's made it pretty clear he's looking to win and willing to sacrifice his numbers for the betterment of the team. So I think a lot of these analysts and fans saying this, that this was a bad deal because it was an overpay, and they're really failing to see that yes, it's a lot and likely is an overpay, but it was the price that you had to pay to bring in another star level talent to put alongside Lavine and Vucevic and to go with a playmaking point guard in Lonzo Ball. Because the front office, I mean, look, they saw that Ball, Lavine, and Vucevic alone, although yes, a good lineup and an upgrade from last year, is likely not enough to make a deep run in the playoffs. And if you add another 20 plus scoring player to the lineup with the right floor general in place to ensure that he's finding those three who are going to average 60 to 70 points combined on a nightly basis, then you're gonna have to take some risks and shell out some money to get there. The other thing I think people tend to forget is that DeMar DeRozan has been making $27.7 million for the last 4 seasons. So it's not like this is an insane raise that he's getting. He's gonna be making nearly $500,000 more than he was before, and in a much higher inflated salary cap since his last contract. The guy is still a 4-time All-Star, a 2-time All-NBA player. This isn't the scrub we're talking about here. He was already getting paid big money before that. Now, that being said, I do get the argument that in the sense this was an overpay simply by virtue of the fact that DeRozan is not a young player anymore. Or I guess I should say by basketball standards. The dude is still young in life. But DeRozan actually just turned 32 yesterday, which, by the way, happy birthday, DeMar, even though I know you're probably not watching this. But he's 32 now. And you gave a guy a 3-year deal worth $85 million, who, although, yes, has altered his game to be a more effective player as he ages, which you like to see, but DeMar has hit his ceiling and will likely start declining soon. So by the time his contract expires, he'll be close to 35 years old, which for some guards, there is a severe drop-off between the ages of 33 and 35 in terms of their level of play. Not for all players, of course, but for some. And so there is a risk that DeRozan falls off with his play, and the Bulls are stuck with his fully guaranteed contract at a hefty price of over $28 million a year. But honestly, I'm not as concerned about his age because we've seen time and time again with the advancements in sport medicine that players are able to play much later in their careers than they were before, and the longevity is there more so than what we would have seen in NBA history. So DeRozan, with his contract expiring in his 34-year-old season, I'm not as concerned about because we still have players in the league today. I mean, you look at guys like Kyle Lowry, Chris Paul, and of course LeBron James still playing at a high level at over the age of 35. Now, the other piece of this is the trade of what the Bulls had to give up for DeRozan in order to make the signing work. And I'm sure you already know this, but the Bulls sent Thaddeus Young, Al-Farouq Amino, and their 2025 first-round pick and 2 second-round picks in 2022 and 2025 for DeRozan. So now we're talking about an already high amount that you're paying DeRozan in $28 million a year, but you're also giving up quite a bit in return. Aminu and Thaddeus Young, I mean, if anything, that actually helped the Bulls because it enabled them to get from under those 2 expiring contracts, one of which was a really bad contract that they likely would have had to waive and stretch in Aminu. Thaddeus Young, I was really hoping that the Bulls would keep, but at $14.2 million a year, an expiring contract, and not really being a part of the Bulls' long-term plans, you kind of knew that he was likely going to be on the move for the right trade package. What is a bit tougher to swallow is the fact that the Bulls gave up 3 picks to get an already unrestricted free agent, one of which was a first-round pick in 2025, which was the soonest first-round pick that the Bulls could actually offer, given they already traded 2 firsts for Vucevic. So the Bulls are going to have two first-round picks between now and 2026. And that includes not having their first round pick this year that they already lost. Now, you guys know me, I'm not a fan of just building through the draft. I'm more of the opinion you build through quality talent, through established players in the form of trades and acquisitions, which is why I love this new front office's approach to building a team. But it is a lot of picks to give up for DeMar DeRozan on top of the already heavy contract that you're giving him. So look, I get it to an extent why the media and other fans are calling this to be too much for DeRozan because yes, it's not just the contract, which is a big price tag for a player of his caliber since he's likely past his all-star days, but it's also the fact that the Bulls did have to give up quite a bit to get him in return. So an expensive salary that will remain on the books for the next 3 years and 3 draft picks that you're forfeiting to get that. It's steep. It's steep for DeMar DeRozan, especially since people view him as the problem in Toronto for never having gotten past LeBron, which isn't fair in my opinion at all. Kawhi Leonard is just a better player, plain and simple, than DeMar DeRozan is, and by that time LeBron had already moved over to the West. Not only that, I think a lot of people, which I feel this way too, see this as a good team on paper, but they do question the overall fit of DeRozan and Lavine for reasons that I've explained before. But either way, whether this deal was a bad deal or one of the worst in free agency will become more apparent when the season really starts getting underway. It's definitely one of those acquisitions that could go to the extremes in either direction, whether it ends up being a horrible deal and one in which it bites the front office in the butt for giving up all of that draft capital and money that straps their cap space for multiple years with his inflated contract, or it's in fact just what the Bulls need to provide that perfect mix of scoring help and playmaking to maximize Lavine and Vucevic's effectiveness on offense and propels this team into being a contender. I want to know what you guys think though. Do you think the Bulls gave up too much in order to land DeMar DeRozan, or will it end up paying off for the Bulls in the long run regardless? Let me know in the comments, and as always guys, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will catch you guys in the next one.